Where is the oldest mound in North America? Well, I'm always on the hunt for it. Yeah, some of the oldest ones are Poverty Point or Jackson Mound or Watson Break in northern Louisiana. But I just learned about another candidate, and it's sitting right in the middle of Savannah, Georgia. Its name is the Bilbo Mound. I was just recently in Savannah, Georgia with some time to kill. And as I'm wont to do when I have time, I Googled archaeological sites in the area. And to my surprise, I found this very old mound sitting right in the middle of Savannah, the Bilbo Mound. It's right outside of their historical downtown, wedged between a golf course and the Savannah River. A little explanation about Bilbo Mound. It was excavated in the 1940s and then again in the 50s. But when I looked at the names of who excavated it, I was surprised. It was Joseph Caldwell and Andrew Waring, and then later on it was William Hogg. And all of these people are renowned archaeologists. They're very famous. And I thought to myself immediately, wow, if these guys are paying attention to the site, it was probably pretty significant. Now, the guys in the 40s couldn't do any carbon-14 tests, but they did very good stratigraphic profiles and left the artifacts. Hogg in 1957 was able to do carbon-14 studies, and he found 3 ranges of dates. Latest ones were 1700 BCE. He found some middle ones around 2500 BCE, and then the oldest date he found at the very base was 3545 BCE. That is very old. And he found ceramics there. Now, this site is very special for a couple of reasons. Let me name 3 big ones that I see. Number 1 is the ceramics. They are very old, and they look just like the ones that were found on Stalling Island, just up the river, up the Savannah River. And those are the oldest we know of in all of North America. Those date to 2500 BCE. And they're kind of crude pottery. They're tempered with grass. But so are the things from the Bilbo Mound. And with the dates that Hogg got, this is probably another place to find North America's oldest ceramics, right here in this mound, Bilbo. Second, it's a shell mound with habitation evidence on top, and that is very interesting. Let me go through basically the evolution of mounds in North America to explain that. So in my view, there is an evolution that starts in the Archaic period, and it starts with shell middens, just big piles of trash, shells being thrown after they were eaten. So those shell mounds get larger and larger and larger, and at some point, people start putting things in them, like other trash and like burials. Those eventually get capped, and people start living on them. Then shell mounds turn into earthen mounds, and then finally, earthen mounds get big enough where I call them earthen pyramids. So that's the evolution, and Bilbo is in an interesting place there. It's before earthen mounds, but it's a shell mound with evidence of habitation. So that makes it unique and an interesting missing link in the evolution of mounds into pyramids in North America. Third, Bilbo is more than just a mound. Both the 1940s and 50s excavations both saw that it was a mound that was on an island surrounded with a man-made lake, and that lake, or I should say pond, had a canal that they dug some 200, 300 feet all the way to the Savannah River. So it was a canal with a pond and a big island in the middle that was made from the muck when they dug out the pond, which makes it a little bit more than just a habitation site. Some people are calling it America's first civil engineering because it's a port. It's not just a settlement. It's an actual place where probably boats were coming in and out safely from the Savannah River. So there I was in my rent-a-car driving back to the Savannah airport thinking about this site, and I thought, man, I don't want to sit in the airport for hours. I could go look for this place. So I diverted. I did not go to the airport. Instead, I decided I'd start at Savannah's History Museum. Surely they would know something. Maybe they'd even have some of the artifacts. But when I went in, nobody knew anything about the Bilbo site. They had never heard of it. In fact, their historic collections did not involve anything that was pre-Columbian. So I asked them, hey, does anybody have any other Indian exhibits in town? And they said, oh yeah, the Massey Heritage Site has some. So I got back in my car and I drove to the Massey Heritage Site, who also had never heard of the Bilbo Mounds. But they did have one room that had American Indian artifacts in it. So I went in there, looked around, took a couple of pictures, found some of that old pottery from Bilbo, and amusingly, a map on their wall that showed the Bilbo site. So, that's okay. Savannah's heritage is thought of as what happened after contact, not before. In any event, I asked the people around there. They said they didn't know anything about it. Maybe it was near the golf course. And so I had no further information, but I still had time to kill, so I decided, what the heck, I'm going to drive out there. I drove just outside of the historic downtown to the roads that my Google Maps was showing me, and lo and behold, the last of the roads were all dirt. And it was raining, so they were muddy, and they were kind of berms piled up in a swampy area full of trash, and it looked like homeless encampments. I started to drive my car down there, but I thought, oh man, I don't want to ruin my rental car. So I backed up, parked it at the highway, and I decided to walk in. The walk was a little spooky. There was lots of trash. There were things floating around. I saw an abandoned baby carriage. But I kept walking, and I took the right as my phone led me, and I went under a highway bridge. Finally, I got to where the site was, but it was off the path in some swampy area with a fence around it, so I couldn't get very close. But I did make a little video of my thoughts while I was standing there. So here's that. In that little patch of woods right behind me is the oldest known mound in all of North America, perhaps all of the Americas. It's called Bilbo Mound, and I'm here in Savannah, Georgia, in a kind of middle of nowhere place, trying to get to these mounds. But there's a lot of scum in between us. There they are, right here. This is the mound. But these are carbon dated at 3450 BCE. That makes them older than Poverty Point, older than Watson Brake, the oldest ones in the entire Americas. They're right behind me. It doesn't look like I'm going to get to them today, but I'll be back. When I got home, of course, I did more research on the Bilbo site. One encouraging thing I learned was that Savannah is aware of it and actually protecting it with a chain link fence with razor wire on top. After all, it is on Google Maps. I found it just by using my phone, so it's not hidden out there, but it is protected. I also learned that in 2001, a student excavation from the University of West Georgia had gone out there to make sure that it wasn't too badly looted yet, and also to do their own testing to try to confirm its dates and the nature of the site. During their excavations, they definitely did find post holes and pits, which meant that people were living on the mound. Their excavations didn't come up with those early dates that Hogg did. Hogg's publication didn't even come out until later on when Andrew Waring put it in there, because a lot of people didn't like his information at the time, and even he himself said that 3545 date was strange and much, much older than his other dates. The student group found nothing more than 1780 BCE, which is still pretty darn old. That's older than Poverty Point. I'm glad Savannah is protecting it, and I'm amused that no one from their museum seems to know it exists, but it is on Google Earth. So, hopefully someday Savannah will further preserve it, perhaps excavate it more, and then turn it into a park. I know that's expensive, but hey, Savannah, one of these days, one of these developers are going to come up and want the land along the river. Why don't you have them pay for it? If you like what I do, please consider supporting me through Patreon. YouTube's ad revenue model sucks. You have to put up with clicking through weird commercials, and creators always get a pittance of the actual revenue. So let's not do that. Patreon is really a much more direct way to support the kind of content that you value. For just $5 a month, you can keep me in this chair instead of out there trying to make a living some other way. I am as cheap as a cup of coffee and considerably less bitter. My Patreon is actually linked to my podcast, ArcheoEd, which if you haven't heard that, you might like that too. But here's the link right here to my Patreon through ArcheoEd. I'll also put it in my show notes. Thanks for watching. If you liked that, you might like these other two videos. Give them a try.